This is Dave Pomeroy with NBM National Business Media.
Greg Brown with All We Do.
This is Isabella Penterick with Solid Stitch Embroidery.
Mark Vasilantone with Vastix International.
And you are listening to the Two Regular Guys
Podcast.
hosted by Terry Combs
And Aaron Montgomery.
Love it, love it.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It is Friday, July 26, 2019. I am Erich Campbell, sitting in for Terry Combs, who you can find at equipmentzone.com and terrycombs.com and everywhere in the country but here. You can find me at erichcampbell.com.
In an airport near you, you can find Terry.
Absolutely.
Traveling dude. I think he's in the Meadowlands this weekend. So
absolutely. NBM is the Meadowlands.
Yep, NBM show going. So I am Aaron Montgomery, sitting in the same chair I normally sit in. And, you can find me over at aaronmontgomery.info. And today we're going to welcome in Henry Ma with the Ricoma, and he's going to help us explore price advice every decorator should know. So this is a great topic and really going to be educational. So make sure that you've got a good notebook in front of you and a pen that writes well and all those other things. So we've already got folks checking in. In fact, they were
awesome.
They were very much waiting. We weren't. We were a couple of minutes late getting started this morning, working through a couple of usual Two Regular Guys technical issues. But we're here. We're ready. We're going to do this. But Eric, what about some news? I didn't have a whole lot, but I noticed you've got some stuff here.
You know, everybody knows that I'm a big patch guy and I'm into patches and branding with patches. So I had to cover this one from Printwear Magazine. MLB is considering sponsored patches. So according to Sports Pro Media, the Major League Baseball is looking to allow sponsored patches on team uniforms within the next 3 years. The NBA is already doing this, and it brings in an average of $7 million a year per team to have these sponsored patches. So with this, it's created some interest from MLB, and Noah Garden, the executive vice president of MLB Business and Sales, told Sports Pro Media that the organization is looking into the venture. He still has a lot to figure out, and they're not really sure when it's going to happen, but he really does feel like it's eventually going to happen. So the deals could really be worth, once again, between $6 and $8 million per year, with high-profile franchises securing quite a bit more. The patch sponsorships, of course, would have to have not only approval of the Players Association, but it'll have to be part of the next collective bargaining agreement. So there's also, there might be some roadblocks there. But the current MLB uniform deal with Nike already allows for it and it has it stipulated. So there's quite a good chance that Major League Baseball will be doing sponsored patches soon.
Very cool. Wow, that sounds good. All those numbers are pretty big numbers too. So certainly something we want to be involved with as decorators to. I bet you your price can be a little different when you're dealing with Major League Baseball.
I would think so. And what I always say is watch what happens in MLB, or you see MLS, soccer, whatever the big boys are doing, it's coming down to school teams. The look of it will filter down. Even if you don't see like sponsored patches on your local, school baseball team, you probably will see patches become more normalized. I know when soccer started going to more printed logos instead of patches, when patches weren't as much there, and we started to have like the high-tech stuff, or we had some RF welded stuff that was happening. As soon as that happened, our club teams were like, okay, what do I get to get digital print instead of patches? As soon as full all over sublimated jerseys happened in MLS, our teams were like, well, how do I get sublimated jerseys? So watching totally. This kind of stuff isn't just frivolous. I mean, it's fun to talk about the big numbers and MLB. And I know there's some people out there who probably do have that business. I'd love to talk to you guys, sign up for a show. But
nice. Excellent.
But yeah, as this stuff goes, it filters down into our business too.
Excellent. All right. Well, we've got lots of regulators checking in here, Eric. In fact, Cindy says, hello from Odessa, Texas. Speak loud. I'm sewing caps right now. So that's what we love about our regulators. They are multitaskers. They're going to take in tons of great information today while they're making money. See, is that not the coolest thing ever?
That is the way to do it, kids.
Yeah. And you know what? If you've got to be off sewing caps or doing something else, you can also check out the podcast version on any of the major podcast players and, listen in your car, listen in the shop while you're working. So, Cindy, we're not going to turn up the volume because I don't want to ring everybody else's ears, but go ahead and turn up your volume. You'll be all right?
That's why I like you get those, the isolating headsets, which believe me, when you're on the machines, I used to wear ear protection eventually. It took me a while to get there, but the ones that have little headphones built in, come on, guys, it's awesome.
Nice, perfect.
Audio podcast, learn.
Totally. All right. Marcy says headphones on, doing aprons this morning. Good stuff there.
Good deal, Marcy.
And, real quick, Eric, Christine had a nice follow-up here to what you were talking about with patches. Sponsored patches might happen with booster clubs. Schools need to pay for their sports teams too. So good stuff.
I would suggest it. Let's put it that way. Yeah, even if it isn't starting now, look at that trend and suggest it, because there's always options for fundraising. I mean, that's never a bad thing. I know we did tons of fundraising printing, and I would have loved to add patches to that.
Nice. Cool. Todd says, just got out from underneath the dryer. Needed to look good for tomorrow. Yes, we'll talk about that in a bit. But Todd will be joining me tomorrow on Small Business Saturdays. So he's ready for his maiden voyage with Small Business Saturdays. So Eric did an awesome job last week, by the way. I got all sorts of comments like, Eric is Batman. Bruce Wayne by day, Batman by night.
People didn't know I do e-commerce, I guess. That's the e-commerce manager.
E-commerce, whatever you need. So anyhow, okay. All right. We're getting way off track here, Eric. So let's keep this moving here.
Absolutely. And while we're keeping it moving, I want to say a great thank you to those regular listeners, regulators, all you guys who are checking in today. If you have an idea for a future show, definitely go to the contact us page on 2. That's the number 2, regularguys.com, and check us in on the live video on Facebook Live when you can. And if you do, please get those comments in, jump in and participate. We've got a really great topic today, and I know you guys are going to have good questions for Henry. So with that, let's hear a word from our gold sponsor.
All right.
This episode of the Two Regular Guys is brought to you by Bright & Leap, makers of the Reggie Award-winning Embrilliance embroidery software. Embrilliance is different. You don't need hardware dongles or to trade active seats for every user. One license lets you run every computer in your shop at once. Embrilliance runs natively on both Mac and Windows. Your single license lets you install on both platforms. Embrilliance is modular. If you only need customizing with lettering, sizing, and recoloring, you can get just that. Embrilliance's unique stitch processing tools even allow you to resize and improve expanded stitch files from digitizers or stock collections for faster running, lighter embroideries. If you decide you need fully featured digitizing, it's fast and easy to add powerful design creation tools to your system. You can start with any tool and build your ideal kit. All Embrilliance programs run standalone or work together in their unified platform. See the difference for yourself at embrilliance.com. Two Regular Guys listeners can enter the exclusive code 2RG, that's the number 2RG, at embrilliance.com/store for 10% off your entire purchase.
All right. Well, definitely want to thank Bright & Leap for their support, and I want to notify all you guys who are listening in who are Embrilliance fans that the beta we've been running all this time with all those great new features is now gold. You can go get your update and get all of the features we've been talking about in your regular install. So if you haven't updated, all you Stitch Artist people and Embrilliance people, get out there and download that new update and get the new features. So glad to have that going on, and we'll talk about it more in the future.
Cool. Very cool. That sounds great. And again, yeah, thanks very much to Bright & Leap and their support of this show. We really appreciate that. Couple other people checking in here before we get to Henry. We're really close, but I wanted to, we've even got people tuning in from the NBM show. So Linda down on the show floor maybe have to give us an update. And then this one I really loved and I just had to share. So good morning, guys. Printing away right now. First 400 shirt order. Thanks for the great information. Nice. My business is starting to take off. So Sam, high five, man. That is so awesome. Very cool. We're proud of you. Nice job. And thanks for having us be a part of that. So Martha, hello. And then last thing I promise. Sorry. Chuck asked what time for Small Business Saturdays. So Chuck, I've been moving it around a little bit, trying to find the sweet spot, but Todd and I are going on tomorrow at 1:00 Central Time. So over at aaronmontgomery.info, more about that as at the end of the show. But let's get to what we really are here for and dive right in. I think Henry's ready for us. So we'll get him, and I got to make sure. Multiple things going on at one time. All right. Welcome into the show. Henry Ma is a business expert who has helped over 3,000 startups and established business owners in over 140 countries grow their decorated apparel business in his role as COO of embroidery machine manufacturer Ricoma, a New York University Stern School of Business graduate. Henry is also the founder of several online startups, including Garmero, an order fulfillment platform for decorated apparel businesses. I think I screwed up the name of that, but we'll get to that in a second. Also the host of Embroidery Insider, a show on Ricoma's YouTube channel, which you have to check out. He offers insights and strategies for people looking for success in the decorated apparel industry. Henry, thanks for coming on the show. How do you pronounce what I totally messed up?
Garmio.
Garmio.
It was close.
Okay.
It was close. But thank you
right.
guys so much for having me here. I've been, watching some of your episodes, so it's great to be on the show and be able to provide some value to your audience and kind of get them some answers that to the most commonly asked questions.
That's awesome
Excellent.
to have you on.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. We're really excited about today. And just from looking at the outline, know what we're going to talk about here. Like I said, I hope everybody has a full open notepad that they're probably going to go through it here. So, Eric, you want to start us off?
Absolutely. I mean, from the intro, we can tell that you're already doing a lot for Ricoma. There's a lot going on there, and you have a lot of background to share. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you do for the company?
Sure. So, it's kind of putting on multiple hats in any given day, right? So, given that I run the operations, it's anywhere between sales, marketing, customer service, to making sure that inventory is correct and things get shipped out on time. So I kind of think myself as like almost like a firefighter role, just like anywhere that they need me, I'm just there to put out fires anywhere that they need me in the company.
Nice.
So everybody's teasing me about being Batman. Turns out Henry's Batman.
Henry's the real Batman. All right.
Right.
Yeah. And I love that fireman analogy. Actually, I had a customer one time send me an actual fireman hat because that's what I felt my role was in a company too. So good stuff. So Henry, I notice we have something in common. Being in front of the camera, doing this quite frequently. You've got a great YouTube channel over there where you guys are sharing a ton of information.
Thank you.
I know you get a lot of questions from customers who want to start an embroidery business. What are the most commonly asked questions that you get from those folks?
Sure. I think without fail, every Facebook Live that we do, there's always someone that asks about pricing. I think in the countless lives that we've done, someone always asks that question, and I think it's an important one because it's something that it's a natural first thing to want to know, right? If you're getting into a new business, the most natural thing that I would ask if I were to get into a new industry is like, okay, how do I price this thing? What's the cost and what's the price? Like what does my profit margin look like? So I think that's why it's such a common question, that I think there's not quite enough information out there for people to really grasp how to price their items properly. And I think it's one of the fundamental things for an embroiderer to be able to for any decorator for that matter, given that you are putting in the time and the effort to make every single piece, that pricing is super important. So that's why it goes without fail that people ask that question, and I'm happy to share some insight into that.
No, this is absolutely the case. I mean, personally, that's something that no matter what else you teach, it's very much like, for me, the two things are, if we're talking about technique, I always have to teach about patches because everybody wants to make patches these days. And then if I'm talking about business at all, it just comes down to somebody blankly asking for a price list, which is not the way I do it either.
Right.
It's like, can you hand me your Excel spreadsheet? That's what they always ask. So knowing that you've helped quite a few of your customers get started, really get people started in business, what do you think makes someone qualified or ready to start an embroidery business?
Sure. I think the mindset is first and foremost super important, right? You need to go into it knowing that these things are not plug and play. I think a lot of people kind of go into the mentality that this is like a computer or a toaster that you just plug into the wall and then it will just run. So there is a learning curve. There are techniques that you need to master and learn the craft. So going in with that mindset, knowing and be prepared to put in the work, put in the hours, and actually learn the craft and master it. That's first and foremost, I think, the mindset that people should get in before they jump into the industry. Then it's about learning the fundamentals, right? Learning the techniques of what is threads, what is tension, and all of these things. Learning the fundamentals of pricing so that you are well equipped with the knowledge and the tools before you kind of ramp up your business. But I think it's the combination of those two things: knowing what you're getting into and be well prepared to put in that work, which can be very profitable, right? If you do it right. But it does take effort. I mean, as with any business, right? It does take effort. So it is not as plug and play as some people think. But with the proper process, with the proper guidance, anyone can do it. I always kind of say that it's not rocket science, but it does take work. So you don't need to have a PhD in rocket science to learn this, and anyone can learn it, but no one is born with it. So you kind of have to just put in the work, and those that do tend to find success.
Yeah,
that's totally. The mindset is completely, you can't discount that ever. Having that mindset, and also I think being able to realize that you've got strengths and weaknesses, and you're going to have to play to those. You're going to have to work with those.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And focus on those strengths. Don't worry about the weaknesses. Those will take care of themselves if you focus on your strengths.
Yeah.
So that's my mentality, at least. So hopefully it's worked out so far for me. So, all right. So as people that tune into the show regularly know, I know about this much about embroidery, and about that much of it is from Erich. So it's never been my strength, again, so I've focused on my strengths. But what's your suggestion here for people that stay focused in embroidery alone? Are you encouraged to branch out into other decorating methods? How does that kind of look, when somebody gets into embroidery? What do you suggest?
Sure, and I think that will be determined by the market, right? By your clients. We go to a lot of trade shows, and if I had $1 for every time someone came up to me, it's like, oh, I'm doing screen printing now, looking to expand into embroidery, or they have other apparel decoration methods already in their shop. That's something that we hear very frequently, and I think that's true because their clients are asking for it nowadays. People want that kind of one-stop shopping experience, right? They want to go to your shop and be able to get screen printing done, and heat transfer vinyl, and bling done, and embroidery done. So they want everything to be done in one place. And then if you can't provide everything, sometimes you lose that business to someone else who can, right? If you think about us as consumers, why do we shop on Amazon? It's because it has anything you can imagine, right? Yeah. So I think the same holds true for the apparel decoration industry, where if you are looking to expand to other decoration methods, it's probably driven by the demand of your customers, or just the demand of the market, that your customers are asking you, hey, do you offer embroidery too? Do you offer heat transfer vinyl too? Then that will kind of get your wheels turning and thinking about, maybe that's something that I should get into. And that's usually when people make that jump and make that investment.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, sorry.
Go ahead, Eric.
No, I just wanted to jump in and be like, I really like the idea that, people have to try and find, not only go with their niche and go where that's at. Certainly that's good. And I see that kind of coming up in the comments where people talking about niching down and finding that. But then Marcy just said, find your target audience, niche down. But then the thing is, once you find that, one of the people always say to me, they're like, oh, we're trying to cold call, get new customers. And I'm like, sometimes what you're going to find is that it's your existing customers mining your existing customers. That's going to be your surest way to just increase your revenue immediately. And a lot of that may be that you're not offering a service they need that you can bring in. So that is a possibility.
Yeah, and as we know, right, to retain clients, it costs a lot less than to acquire a new customer. It costs like 3 times, 4 times as much to acquire a new customer. So mining those customers, as you mentioned, for other apparel decoration methods, you already have kind of a solid foundation. You have a base that you've already built. So why not kind of maximize that revenue potential from those clients? And those can bring you other customers too, right? The repeat business and referrals to other clients. So it's not necessary that you keep on getting new clients, although that's great for growth. And every new client you get, you should definitely think of any way possible to retain that client, and that service and ongoing support is going to be super important. So, but yeah, I think people overlook the fact that your existing customers probably drive a huge portion of your revenue.
Yeah, totally. Those are really good points, and I think really made. So I guess to follow up that a little bit, Henry, though, the whole overarching theme there is, when do you think you said it's kind of driven by your customers, but what's that kind of tipping point for adding an additional decorating method? And is there any way to kind of get from point A to point B without putting yourself in a bad spot financially?
Well, yeah, you kind of have to know your numbers, right? And if you've seen that, like, hey, I'm getting a steady stream of customers, I'm getting steady cash flow, and you have kind of money saved up, or you can do extra financing and know that, hey, every month I'm getting this much of revenue and it can cover that, then it definitely makes sense to kind of expand into either maybe even dive deeper into that method to expand your capacity and be able to do more and then also think about other needs, right? So I think the other needs part is largely driven by what your customer is wanting, and then you have to balance out between kind of getting your capacity for one method more expanded, or expanding into other methods, which knowing that you have to learn that over again, right? You have to learn screen printing all over again, or heat transfer vinyl. There's still a learning curve to it, so you have to bake that into your kind of outlook in your business.
For sure. That's good looking ahead. Yeah, totally.
No, absolutely. And honestly, we see a lot of people who don't look ahead and who try and jump into things. And it actually kind of leads into something I wanted to talk about. You know, we always talk about adding decoration methods. I'm so glad that you went with a business-focused reason for adding decoration methods, because there's people like me, and I really love the creative side. I was a digitizer. I started kind of in the art rooms. That's where I was. I mean, luckily, I started e-commerce at the same time, so I got business with it. But there's a lot of people who love the process and get wrapped up in the creative part of it, but they don't really think about the business side of things, how to sell or how to price before they start, or before they expand into a new field. So, maybe we can talk about that. Like, what do you suggest that a new business should do to kind of get up to speed and get started in a way that puts a real business mindset and profit first?
Yeah. And I think that's a great question, because there are people that sometimes do this as a hobby, or it kind of starts out as a hobby. But I'm always like, I mean, you know, a hobby is kind of like a cash drain, and if you can make a profit from it, if you can kind of fund your hobby in some way, that's at least better than just having it as a hobby, right? So I think in any way, even people who say that, oh, I'm just a hobbyist, I'm just doing this for fun. I mean, my first reaction to that is, you know, why not fund your hobby by making some money? And even if you aren't caring about kind of growing the business, you can at least kind of like fund the cash drain for your hobby, right? So I think that's first and foremost, that people kind of need to get into kind of a profit focused mindset, that this is not a, you know, cheap hobby. It is something that you need to that you do need to upkeep, and you have a lot of like shiny things and shiny objects that you want to get, and that's why people kind of go to trade shows and then they come back with like a bunch of stuff and they're like, oh, did I really need all this stuff? But I think going back to the question, it's really about kind of knowing the fundamentals, right? Knowing the industry. Don't just kind of jump in thinking that, oh, this will be something cool to do. You can get really kind of wrapped up in the creative side, and that's all great. I think what I preach a lot is about combining the creative with profit, right? I mean, you can sell your stuff on Etsy, and you can flip stuff from the dollar store, like an oven mitt or something. You can buy from the dollar store and then embroider a monogram on it and sell it for like $20. So like why don't you do that, right? So kind of look at the avenues in which you can have the creative outlet, but at the same time be able to generate some revenue from that to cover that hobby. I think that's something that even if you aren't trying to do this professionally or full time, that is something that you can always do on the side, and then maybe you start seeing the potential of like, hey, this is making money. Like maybe I should do this on a full time basis. Yeah.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, you're going to the dollar store, and then you're selling it at the $20 store. That sounds like a pretty good deal.
I would take that every day of the week. Yeah,
exactly.
No doubt. I mean, that's in the prosumer space, I would say, especially that kind of like we're starting in that cottage industry space, which is growing and growing. I constantly follow into that same thing. That's why I was like nodding and laughing while you're talking, because that's my first thing I always say to people is like, hey, you want to buy that new equipment later? You want that laser cutter? You want that DTG printer? Let me tell you, the easiest way to get that started is actually make money and not make this thing into like the boat in the backyard with a cover on it. Like, you know, actually get this thing out there and use it. And I think that's the other thing, to get like somewhat metaphysical or philosophical about this thing. Also, it's people not valuing their time. Like, these are the precious hours of your life. If you're spending them, you might as well get something for them, or at least don't give them away without value. You have value out there that you're giving people when you're so get that value back. There's nothing wrong with that. People who have trouble with sales, I'm like, if you're putting out a high quality product and you like that and you think it's valuable, which you must if you're doing it, then obviously it's something that's worth getting that value back out of.
Yeah,
totally. So in fact, here's a good question, and it's going to cut off a little bit on the screen there, so I'll read the whole thing. When will that $1 per 1,000 stitches be abolished? I have heard this is a decade-old price, and I do not use it. I charge what I'm worth. Others are too scared to charge. What, Henry? Any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, every time I see the dollar per thousand stitch rule, I just kind of cringe inside a little bit, and I think it's such an outdated rule, and because it's so cookie cutter, right? It's like this is it. This works for every scenario you ever have, and that's just not the case. Some items take longer to do, even though they have the same number of stitches, right? Like it doesn't. It's not a one size fits all formula, and so when you get kind of like pigeonholed by that. I almost, I get frustrated in that I don't want people to underprice their services, right? Like what Eric mentioned, you're providing something of value, and people you're investing your time, because this is a very much time-based business. You're essentially manufacturing each and every single piece. So if you're putting in that time, you need to account for that time and price properly.
Nice.
And honestly, I just want to say that. Oh, sorry. Doing a cut off, Jeff. I've got to say this. Marcy just brought up. She's like, "Oh, it's a 10-year-old pricing scheme." No, it's not. It's 20+ years old. It's the same price that I heard when I first got into business. My first day I ever priced somebody told me it's gone up 1 penny. It used to be 99 cents a thousand.
Nice. Well, Jeff says, I believe a little tongue in cheek, but says he promotes that price model. It helps him to buy used embroidery equipment and supplies cheap. For those people pricing that way, go out of business. And yes,
and Jeff's going to get up your equipment, guys.
Nice. All right. Well, let's keep moving along. And there's definitely some other great comments that I want to come back to here as we continue. But all right. So we've got started. We're going to price what we're worth. We're going to make a profit, even if we're in this a little bit for hobby. In fact, there was another comment that I want to go back to talk a little bit about that from Michelle. But okay, now we're in business. Hey, we got a business. This is cool. Mm-hmm. What are we going to do to be profitable? What's the next step?
Yeah. First and foremost, I think people should look at the network around them. If you're talking about kind of in terms of getting business, I think people try to like shoot for the top level big guns, and then those are going to be hard and those are going to take time, right? But if you're just starting out, look around to your network. I mean, there's a lot of low hanging fruit of like clubs that you're in, associations that you're in. Your friend might have an in with your local school or local club, right? Like those are things that you should be looking at that are low hanging fruit that you should capitalize, from the beginning, so that you can leverage those resources. And then once you do a good job for those people, they can refer you to other people, and you've built a track record knowing that you can produce great work, right? But people start off like aiming for the big guns of like, I want to aim for this like 3,000 person corporation and try to get that contract. Like, just start off with it's okay to start small and start off with your local network and get those low hanging fruit, get those early wins, so that you build the confidence, and then the people around you build the confidence that they can refer you to other people, and then you build your track record, and that 3,000 person contract can easily be within reach with that track record.
Yeah, excellent. Totally. I mean, great point for sure.
No, that's totally true. I think that too many people think that they're going to jump and get one big contract. And what I'm going to say from experience, and I have unfortunately been at a company where the person who was running it ran it into the ground. And the way they ran it into the ground was by getting 3 really huge clients. And I mean, we're talking about really huge national brands selling into department stores, and leaving all of those local clients that we used to service behind. And when that happened, 2 of those big clients disappeared within the course of about 6 months, and the company was shut in a year. Everybody says putting your eggs in one basket. I mean, it's an old adage, but it's absolutely the case. You don't want to do that. And it makes a lot of sense. Not only that little network, not only can they get you more business, but they actually can continue to feed your business consistently, because a lot of those people become loyal customers. And I'll say, once again, personal experience. I remember one time we did a rush job it was like a water polo team out here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, something you don't expect. With random small water polo team. We do a really good job for them on a rush job. Later, it turns out that somebody who's coaching them is working at a major electrical company, and then we started pulling in business from that, and it became a huge, tens of thousands of dollars orders client. Starts with 12 jerseys for a water polo team.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like that. You don't know when that's going to happen, and treating all the customers the right way and building up the reputation, doing the quality work can really bring something else in.
Definitely. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Well, I'm going to go back real quick to a comment that came up earlier that I mentioned that I wanted to kind of touch on and get your feedback on too, Henry, is that fear of jumping into this and fear of like, am I going to get the business? Am I going to disappoint people? So before I pass that over to you, Henry, I I don't know if anybody could see this, and I'll post it on the Facebook later, but I'll put it up there. So fear is the fantasized experiences appearing real. That's what fear stands for. All it is a fantasized experience appearing real in your brain.
Okay,
You know, so Henry, what would you say to those folks that just are having that kind of the failure to launch there?
Yeah, and I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, right? Like they have this dream of making it big, and they see other people doing it, and they want to do it too. But it's that fear of like, yeah, I've never done this before, right? And I'm not sure if this is going to work. That holds them back. But to be very honest, like to get rid of your fear, you just have to do it. Like the only way to get over that is to just do it, because then it's like, oh, it's not that bad. Right. It's like if you're afraid of skydiving and I'm scared of heights. Right. But but if to literally get over that fear, I just have to do it. And then maybe it's like, oh, it's not that bad, but you won't know until you try it. Yeah. So I think the fear causes people to not act, and sometimes not act. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is have regret. Like 5-10 years later, you're like, oh, I should have done this, right? Like I live my life like I would rather not have that. Like I'm so afraid of that regret that I'm just like I'm just if I fail, I fail, and I try something else, right? But I'm so afraid of like 10 years later, I'm gonna look back and I regret, and that regret is gonna eat away at you. For so long, and that pain is going to be so not worth it compared to the fear that you have now if you just go ahead and try it.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a really good point. And like you said, what you're doing is you're taking that opportunity cost, and that for you is greater than that fear. And that's what people have to get to. Is most of the time we're afraid of something, but we never think about the other side of it. We just think about the potential bad things that could happen. But think about all the good things that could happen. And are those things more valuable than that little bit of uncomfortableness and getting over that fear? I think that's You said it really well there, Henry, and I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, like people are afraid of failing because it might seem like other people are going to judge them, right? They're going to feel like, oh, if I fail, what's my colleague gonna think of me? What's my friend gonna think of me? Right? Like they're afraid of the judgment or the perception from others. But really, you're doing this for you, right? Like you want to do this to grow your business, to kind of get to your dream. Like who really cares what other people think? I would rather not live with that regret and having to come back and be like, oh, I really should have done that, and that's going to be more painful, I think, than just kind of getting over that fear and just doing it. Just act, just do it.
By far. And I think that honestly, the one thing I will say, and I know you probably know this because you teach a lot and you're out there doing the streams and the Q&As. Some part of what we do is always a little self-help. I hate to say that. It's a little like we're kind of helping you do your own self-help. We come up and go, okay, here I am. I'm a person who's been there and done this work, and I'm giving you permission to fail because I've certainly done it a bunch.
Yep.
And it took me failing to get where I need to go. If you're not messing up garments every once in a while, if you're not failing, if you're not occasionally having a job go sideways, you're not trying.
Exactly.
You're not putting yourself out often enough. If you find that you're always safe and everything always goes right, that means it's time for you to stretch. It's time to go out further. You need to feel a little bit of that fear. That's fine. Also, it's okay if you never get entirely cool with it. I'm going to tell people from being someone who teaches and goes out and speaks, nobody believes this because I'm pretty effusive when I go out and speak. I get nervous before I talk. Every time I go out to teach, I get nervous before I do it. I go out and do it. It's always great. I like it. The responses come in, but right up until that 5 minutes before I go out there's a moment where I'm like, I don't know about this class I'm teaching. I probably should have spent some more time on this outline. I don't know. It's like about slide 35. There's a weak spot that's going to last about
35 slides. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So I get nervous when you use big words, Eric, and you makes me scared. But no,
I was about to throw a quote out about daring greatly, and it doesn't. That's the thing. When people criticize you, it doesn't belong to them. You're out there in the field doing the work. If they're not out there doing it, that does not belong to them. You are out in the field doing it. If they're not doing it, don't listen.
Right.
Unless somebody's out there. And honestly, if somebody's giving you good criticism and they are putting themselves out there, that's a good person to listen to, because that's someone who probably is saying, they are out there, they're daring greatly. They're out there on the field. And you want people to be out there on the field with you, and you want to be around the kind of people who do.
Exactly.
So I'll off the soapbox here, off the soapbox, but it's worth it to get out there, guys.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, Eric, take a deep breath.
I'll take a deep breath.
Okay. Right. So, hey, real quick,
preaching, right?
So we need to get to Henry,
Sure.
and we've got some great, like Eric said, maybe a little self-help stuff. Let's get a little technical here one more time. And again, this is probably not going to show up all the way on the screen, but
Sure.
I had an embroidery teacher once suggest that I create sample stitch outs of local business logos and take them in to try to gain new business, excuse me. Seems costly. What is a good strategy to get local business? Henry?
Yeah, I think that sampling method is actually one that's, it will take time, but it shows that you're providing value up front, right? Yeah, going door to door and having to digitize their logo and embroidery on the sample, it will take time, but you are providing so much value up front. And you are opening the eyes of the business owner to be like, hey, you are able to provide this type of service, and so I think it's a great method. Yes, it will take time. There's no real way to scale that. Like you can't automate that in any way. So you just kind of have to do it. But that's one of the ways that's kind of like proven and tried and true. That if you provide value up front, business owners will see that. And if you can put my logo on a piece of garment, and that not only shows me that you want to earn my business, but it also shows me that, hey, this is the possibility of what my logo can look like, and I start thinking about kind of like how to brand my company, right? And so if you're able to provide that value up front, it's great. And if you have that time, but I mean, there are other more quick ways to that will cost more in terms of money. It will cost you one way or the other, either time or money, right? So either you put in the time and you do the sampling way, or you do advertising, and then you kind of like, you got to pour in the dollars, and you got to know what you're doing to advertise to local businesses. So those are the kind of like two general methods to go about it.
Nice. Okay. Well, let's get back on pricing. Oh, go ahead, Eric, and then get us back on pricing, please.
I'll get us back. I'm going to get us back into the next question, and we're actually going to go there from here. I'm going to say that one of the other things I've seen very recently is people doing things like local pride shirts, where they're like, okay, from this county, from this state, something interesting, where they do a cool decoration, so it's more universal, and they drop those off, so they have like, oh, it's not their company logo, but it is something cool. It has a cool decoration on it. It has your branding somewhere attached to it, and they give that to local businesses, and it might make it a little less costly because you're doing one big run of something instead of making individual digitized file. And then the other thing people do pretty frequently, if you're not going to stitch it out, you might still be able to afford just to do digitizing and send a mock-up. I mean, there's no stunner like bringing in a garment. Honestly, absolutely. You really want somebody, bring a garment in. I know I showed up to a meeting with a local hospital chain out here, and they thought we were coming in to just do a pitch, and I walked in with one range of garments already decorated. That made a big difference. Those went around that conference table, and faces were changing immediately. Exactly. So if you really do think there's a serious business opportunity there, sometimes it's worth taking them. Once again, that's that jump. That's a leap of faith sometimes you have to take, especially when there's so much upside to getting them on.
Totally.
But okay, without...
All right, So Eric,
we want to get the pricing. That's the top question, right?
We do. And then I also want to mention that the regulators are on fire today. As usual, they're doing a great job. So we've got some questions that I'm going to come back to, but let's get through this, because I really want to get to this information, and then we'll ask these questions of Henry, or we'll come back in the comments and catch them later.
For sure. We're going to catch some of you guys after the fact, I know, because otherwise we'll be in super bonus time.
Yeah, exactly.
But, we already
will be here all day.
Right. We talked about the old pricing, the dollar per thousand thing, and we're going to go ahead and put that to bed. We already know we don't like that.
Yeah.
I know I teach pricing all the time. You're constantly getting asked that question. What is your formula? Like, what do you actually teach when you get out there, if you're willing to share?
Okay. Sure. No, I'm always wanting to share and kind of get the message out there. I think the general the principle that we teach is that you have to be pricing based off of time, right? Because as we mentioned throughout this conversation, time is of the essence, and it's like time is money. Like, it literally is money in this business. So pricing based on the time is going to give you the most accurate way to not underprice and still be competitive enough in the market. So the formula that we use is really start off with what I call your magic metric, right? You have to determine what type of hourly profit for your time is worth, right? Like if I'm comfortable, and I have a single head machine, and I'm comfortable with making $50 of profit per hour for my time. Like if that's a number that I'm comfortable with, that is my my magic metric. And your magic metric is gonna determine on your circumstances, your overhead, kind of what kind of equipment you have, and your costs and all those things. But once you have your magic metric and you know kind of what you're comfortable with on making a profit on an hourly basis, then you work backwards. You work backwards to determine the item that you're trying to price, how many of those I can do in 1 hour. Okay. And then you do that based off of an estimate of like, hey, if it's a flat item, maybe I stitch at 800 stitches per minute. And then I know how many stitches is in the design. I can divide that and get to how many minutes it'll take me to do one item. And then you can round it out to how many of those items you can do in an hour. Then you just take your magic metric and you divide by the number of items you're able to do to determine the per item profit that you need to have. And then you just tack on your hard cost of the blank apparel, right? Or maybe a little bit extra for the threads or backing or other supplies that you need to get that order done. But if we run through a simple example, if I have a magic number in mind of $50 in profit per hour, and I can do say like 5 polo shirts in an hour, I need to be able to make $10 of profit per polo shirt, right? In order to get to my hourly profit of 50. Right? If I can make $10 of profit per polo shirt, then you just tack on your hard costs. Maybe the polo shirt costs $5 in wholesale. Tack on another $1 or $2 of your supplies. You're arriving at $15, $16, $17 for that polo shirt. Right. So, and then you can kind of flex the numbers a bit depending on the order volume that your customer is placing. Right. You can start to give some bulk discounts if you need to, and then but still be within that range, knowing that you are pricing based on time and you're not pricing something that's gonna, if someone asks you do the polo shirt for me for $7, you know that's not going to be possible because that's under what you're comfortable with.
Yeah. And that when you're increasing, or you're decreasing based on the volume there, that's basically kind of assuming that then you're going to be able to become more efficient with making things. Correct. You're doing them more over and over and repeatedly.
Exactly. And that's why you see multi-head embroiderers be able to price less, right? Because I can do 6 times the number of pieces that you can in an hour. If you can do 5 polo shirts in an hour and you have a single head, I can do 6 of those if I have a 6 head. So I can do 30, right? You do 5 runs. I do 5 runs as well, but I do 6 at a time. So I can do 30. Now you can see the drastic difference when I can do 30 pieces in an hour and I need to reach $50 if that's what I'm comfortable with. But yeah. I would imagine that if you have a 6 head, your magic metric is going to go up as well. Like you're going to be like, hey, I'm going to aim for that $100 per hour in profit, right? But still, at $100 per hour, I just need to make $3.33 per polo. And I can reach $100 per hour in profit. You can see the drastic change in pricing based on kind of how efficient you are. And that kind of is determined by one, kind of your skills and the equipment that you have.
No, and certainly, I mean, we know that overhead's going to change, things like that. So obviously, you're going to have to figure in your overhead. You're going to have to talk about how much it costs to maintain your equipment and how much, you're paying for your equipment you're leasing or whatever you're doing for your funding. Those things all have to be figured in. So it is more complicated than just, blank goods plus profit, but it is really good to think about that profit first. You don't want to think about the profit last. I think that's one of the problems people get into is or you'll see it. I know you guys don't do this, but I've seen before, there once upon a time, bad old days, machine manufacturers who would put out an ad that said, if you just sell 15 hats a month, you can pay for your machine. And they didn't factor in any other costs aside from the lease payment. And I'm like, well, that's not really how that works. So you do have to think about how this stuff all fits and labor. The other thing that's good about pricing on time, even if you factor it back on stitches, knowing about how much time things takes, you can actually do some studies and say, how much time do I have in finishing and trimming and cutting out backing? And if you're pricing on your time and thinking about your time instead of just thinking about the units and the stitches, you end up being able to recoup costs that are sometimes lost when people don't think about the full process.
Of course, yeah. And the time process that I just mentioned, definitely it's kind of like it's a back of the envelope calculation. But definitely think about your setup time, right? You have to hoop the items, you have to set the machine up, maybe you do some maintenance afterwards. So but knowing that process, you start getting into a mindset of being able to price based off time, and you start kind of to keep track of how long it takes for you to do those items. The more efficient you can be, either because of your equipment or because you're very skilled at doing it and you've done this so many times, that's going to help you lower your cost because you're getting more output.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, so Henry, you've given us a really good picture of this pricing model and stuff like that. But what, how did you kind of arrive at this? What spurred you to put this whole pricing structure together?
Sure, because I see people. The thing is, I see people price based off that dollar per thousand stitch count rule, and then there's so many people kind of spreading that around because it's so cookie cutter and it's so actually very easy, right? There's not a lot of moving pieces, and that's just what it is. You take your design and you do the multiplier. But the thing is, it's like I see a lot of people underpricing it, and then now they start wondering, why are people asking me to do things for this price? And it's like it seems so cheap, and it's definitely like out of my range. Well, you should be thinking about like what is your range, right? You should be thinking about what is that magic number that you have in mind, and depending on your circumstance, your overhead, your cost, and how efficient you are, you should be thinking about how much time it takes for you to do that in order to price properly. And if you see that you can't price as competitively as other people, then you need to start looking into your operations of like, hey, am I just being not efficient? If the single head embroiderer next door, right, is outpricing me, like, why is that? Is it just because they can take a loss on every order? I don't think so. It's probably because they're better at something than you are, and they're pumping out more output, more volume than you are in the same given time, right? And then that's gonna affect their pricing because they can output more, and now they can lower their price and outbid you.
Yeah, totally.
Well, and certainly the other thing people forget is that there's also an input from who your customer is. There's a certain customer base that's willing to pay a premium for people who are spending more hands-on time or doing different decoration processes, or who are good with single personalization that may be able to meet your margin without having the bulk. Volume is not the only way to arrive at your magic number.
Absolutely, and the thing I tell single-headed embroiderers is like, don't feel that you're at a disadvantage versus the guys that have like 4 and 6 heads, or running a 20-head shop. You can still carve out a very sizable, profitable chunk of the market if you focus on personalized items, right? Because those guys that with the 20 heads are not going to take those orders because it's not an efficient use of their time because they're focused on volume. But not everyone is focused on volume, and there are people that are looking at these one-off orders with maybe half a dozen pieces, 3 or 4 pieces that take a lot more care and a lot more time to set up, but are willing to pay that premium, as Eric mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you've got also to remember that you're going to attract the kinds of customers based on what you're putting out there. So if you're showing off stuff on Facebook or whatever that is kind of cheap, you're running promos on being the cheapest guy in town, and then when you're complaining about the fact that everybody's coming in and saying I want the cheapest stuff, you got to look at yourself in the mirror there a little bit. So so put out there, if you want to do the personalization, focus on that. If you want to be the best value, focus on that, those kind of things. So that's some really good stuff.
You got to show the work you want to do.
Totally. So let's I'm regulators, you guys are awesome. I'm not going to get to every single question on here because we'd make Henry sit here all day with us. So
I don't mind.
We're gonna. I know you don't. You're awesome, but we've got to keep our. Anyhow, we'll get into the comments and reply, and I know your team's in there already, Henry, replying to some of this. So I'm just going to kind of take them as they came in here a little bit, and if I missed yours again, it's nothing personal. We'll get to them in the comments. But all right. So Dot Tone Dan Campbell, a friend of ours, a screen print guru and designer extraordinaire. He says screen print has a sweet spot for profit. For example, 48 to 72 is common quantity and profitable range for a lot of screen printers. Is there a sweet spot for embroidery?
That's an interesting question. The sweet spot for embroidery in terms of the profit. I think once it starts getting into maybe 1 dozen pieces.
Okay.
One dozen pieces is a pretty sizable order, especially for someone that's just starting out with a single head. Because like once you get into like 2 dozen, three dozen, you're going to be taking a lot of time. Like that turnaround time is probably going to be very, very long for a single head embroiderer. You're probably looking at, staying up late at night, burning the midnight oil. Once it gets, I always tell people, once it gets over kind of like 4 dozen and around the 50 piece range, and that's the regular size of orders that you're getting, you're probably looking to move up to a 2-head, because like to do 50 pieces, like you're going to take days. You're going to take like a whole week of staying up till 2 a.m. in the morning to do 50 pieces. Like that's just the way it is. So
Nice.
I think the magic kind of number there is probably around a dozen pieces. You should be very comfortable with having a good turnaround time and knowing that it's a sizable order for a single head that you can make a profit on.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so much of that is really dependent on your equipment and the number of heads you're running, the way you're set up. Embroidery very much, absolutely, the way we price, the way everything is done in production, based very much on what kind of head count you have and your setup. If you've got a single with multis, it changes how things go.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Well, that leads nicely into this question from Charles. It says, if looking to add embroidery to a business, is it worthwhile to start with a single head machine, or should we be considering no less than a 2-head machine to start out with?
Great question. I think you should always look at kind of 3 to 6 months down the road from where you want to be at, right? So like where you're currently at. Let me rephrase that a bit.
Sure,
where you're currently at, look down 3 to 6 months down the road and see and picture where your business is going to be. So to answer that question, you have to know kind of the volume of orders that you're expecting. Right? Maybe you have a current business, maybe you have a screen printing business, and you can easily leverage the customer base that you currently have. Then maybe it makes sense to start off with a 2-head, because you know that you have a predictable volume that that's going to come through the door every single month. But if you don't, and you don't have that customer base, then de-risk it by starting off with a single head. But start off with a single head with enough of an embroidery area, enough needles, enough kind of capabilities for you to grow into 3 to 6 months down the road. Because the last thing you want is to get something that you're going to outgrow in like the next week, and your customer asks you to do these large Carhartt jackets, and you're like, oh, I can't because my embroidery area is too small on the machine that I just bought. Yeah. So you want to think 3 to 6 months down the road and kind of purchase based on the volume that you expect then, and what you can grow into, as well as the types of items that you're looking to do 3 to 6 months down the road.
Nice.
I absolutely have to jump briefly on that and say, people who think they want to, when they do start with a single head, yeah, I know. When you want to start with a single head, and people are always saying, okay, I'm going to trade in my single head and get a multi-head, I'm going to caution you guys, it's really a great idea to keep on that single head if you want to be in also an everything to everybody kind of shop, because the single head can run personalization and sampling while you're running big orders on the multi. So when you get ready to move to multi, think about keeping that single head around if you do start with a single head, because it's a powerful combination to have a multi for volume and a single for personalization.
I couldn't agree more. I think that mistake is so common that people think, oh, I can just trade in my single head for a 6-head, and then they realize, oh, I have to turn off 5 heads to run like a sample order for someone. It's not a good use of the investment you just made on the 6-head.
Yeah. And if you are doing personalized items, singles, even having multiple singles may be better for you if that's your primary market. So market, once again, big deal there.
Yep.
Nice. Totally. Okay. One last question from the comments here. And not only are the comments and questions awesome, but yeah, people are helping each other out in the comments too. So if you're catching the podcast version of this, make sure you get over to facebook.com/2regularguys and check that all out and be a part of that conversation in there. But
absolutely.
We've got, okay, here we go. There it is. Sorry, it moved on me. I need a good reply for those price shoppers on the phone. How much to embroider my logo on a shirt? I feel like I'm wasting so much time explaining that I cannot just throw a price, it just moved again, out without seeing the logo. What Henry, do you have anything good off the top of your head there?
Well, you absolutely need the logo to even start a pricing conversation. So
Sure.
I mean, I think without being unprofessional, you just ask them in a nice way to at least provide me a screenshot or a snapshot of your logo, maybe even a PNG file, or at least give me an idea of how large that logo is going to be. Is it 2x2, 3x3, right? So like at least you know what you're starting off with. But just to tell how much does it? If I don't even know what your logo looks like, how can I even start a conversation with pricing? So I think that's something that you just kind of have to ask them in a nice way to be able to provide the logo. And I think off the logo itself, you can get a reasonable estimate, and just let your customer know that this is not set in stone. Like you're giving me such like a rough thing, so I'm giving you a rough estimate. Okay, so like if you just give me the size of your logo, I'm just going to give you a very ballpark number, and then we can talk further once you decide on what kind of garment you want to do and things like that.
Yeah. I think you've hit the nail right on the head there. I think the conversation is, hey, Mr. Customer, I want to do best by you. I want you to be happy. I want to be able to give you the best price I can possibly give you. So I need this information. And if I don't have this information, I'm just ballparking it and I'm going to be high. I mean, that's just the way that it is. So, I think kind of starting there. Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, certainly. No, and if you have a customer facing space, if you have like a showroom or even just an area in your shop where you have people where you're literally talking to them face to face, having samples on the wall shouldn't just be to show off your really cool items. It should be also some very regular jobs, the kinds of thing that you usually do. So if somebody really pins you down and says how much and they can't give you a lot of information, you can at least kind of say, this logo over here on the wall, this kind of complexity and size runs around like this, but I'd really have to see your logo to start. And at least gives them an idea. And if someone says, oh, I want it much smaller than that, you get them to start opening up, because there's every once in a while you're going to have those people who are suspicious and the pricing is difficult to get done. But it's having some concrete stuff for the people who don't have imagination. I hate to say this, and I know I'm very sorry because we are all customers as well as people who sell. Sometimes customers don't have the most imagination ever.
I'm one of those customers.
It's okay to lead them to it. Yeah, no, if they don't, not everybody has the imagination to figure this stuff out, and it's okay to say, lead them right to it and say, this is about what we're looking at.
Yeah. Totally.
Right,
so if I come into your shop asking for embroidery stuff, just beware, okay?
Know your stuff.
All right, Eric. Well, we've got a few other things to cover with Henry before we get out of here, and we're obviously going to go into bonus time. So why don't you take us to the next step?
Yeah,
here, Eric?
let's go to this. Now, I really want to get this in here because we all know Team Ricoma and the stuff you're putting out there. You're putting out all this great content, and I see that you've really focused on getting this stuff out in the industry, and you've got great communities of decorators. So where can we find like more about these resources, about your pricing strategies and things, and where can they go to kind of join in these communities you've been building?
Sure. Yeah. So I think the first thing to do, I mean, if you kind of, if the audience wants to keep up to date with the content and the new videos that we put out, definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. I have a podcast on there that we do on a weekly basis. So it kind of gives these little hacks and tidbits of information that you can just, watch and implement into your business to make a difference. And then the next thing, if you want to join like a community of decorators that are asking very similar questions and are giving their input and join the conversation, definitely join our free Facebook group, Embroidery and Custom Apparel Mastery. I think we have over like 12,000 people in that group now, and a bunch of people from different decorating methods, from screen printing, heat transfer vinyl, embroidery, definitely. And those people are kind of showing their projects, showing and asking great questions that people can chime in on. And a lot of times you leverage the answers from the community and join that conversation. So definitely check that out. So those are, I would say, would be the two main sources to be able to kind of keep up to date with the content and join the conversation.
Awesome. So Henry, what other stuff's out there coming on the horizon? I know you've got other really cool projects in the works, so you want to share some of those with our listeners?
Awesome. I think the one thing that we are really excited about that we've just launched is our Deco Summit conference. So that's kind of like the first really educational focused decorating conference in our industry, where we have a bunch of sessions, I think like 40 plus sessions focused on things from digitizing to direct to garment printing to heat transfer, to even sewing, to really kind of give people the hands-on training that they've been missing. Because I think the one thing with trade shows is it's great, you're looking at a lot of new cool stuff, but it's not focused on education. It's a focus on a lot of the booths, and you're walking around and checking out new things. So with Deco Summit coming up October 11th and 12th, that's going to be in our new headquarters in Miami, Florida, where we're moving into a new building, state of the art, at like a 50,000 square foot warehouse, and be able to kind of host that summit there and kind of bring together a lot of great speakers to be able to provide value to our customers, and have them implement those knowledge into their business. So we're very excited about that, and that's something that our team is kind of scrambling to put together to launch, in October.
Okay, cool. Well, make sure you check that out at decosummit.com. I've kind of got it up on the screen here, scrolling through a few things. So yeah, that is really cool, and excited to learn and see more about that. Mm-hmm. Anything else? We mentioned Garmio I think it's Garmio. Did I just screw it up again? But we mentioned that we mentioned that at the top of the show. Can you tell us a little bit about that too?
Yeah, I think that concept kind of came about from just looking at, like, I guess the second most commonly asked questions that decorators have, which is how do I get business, right? Like how do I do the marketing and get business? Yeah. And to be honest, like decorators, they are good at doing the craft, right? They're running their business, getting the orders done, fulfilling the actual orders. So Garmio kind of spawned off of the fact to take the marketing load, the load of having to market your business, and kind of take that off of the plate from our decorators. So it's kind of like an Uber for embroidery and printing, where kind of we do the marketing and route those orders to the vendors in our fulfillment network, and then they can go ahead and fulfill those orders. So having decorators focus on what they do best, which is kind of fulfilling the orders, mastering the craft, and not worry so much about the marketing and knowing where and kind of knowing where your next piece of business is going to come from. Have Garmio kind of route that business to you and master the craft first, be able to fulfill those orders in a timely manner, and just do a great job in the embroidery itself.
Very cool. Very awesome. Cool. Wow. Good stuff. Okay. Well, sounds like you're busy, so we better let you go. Get back to getting all that stuff together. Henry, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate all the information and a fun conversation. So,
definitely. Hey, thank you guys so much for having me on here. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully I was able to provide some insight and value to your audience.
Absolutely. 100%. All right, Henry, we'll talk to you very soon.
All right, take care, guys.
For being on.
See ya.
Thanks.
Take care. Eric, man. Take it. Let's all
take a
breathe.
Breath, right? Like,
good stuff.
Shake it off. Think about all the stuff you learned.
Tons of good stuff. Take it all in. And again, the regulators. You guys had tons of great questions. Tons of helping each other inside of the comments and stuff there. So you can check that out. And Marcy said, please link that group after the show, Aaron. So we'll get for sure. Yeah, we'll get.
And honestly, that's another. I wanted to raise my hand. I'm one of the people who's in that group who's answering questions quite a bit. So that's one of the places I spend my time answering questions. So yeah,
nice.
Definitely good group of folks.
Cool. All right. Perfect. Well, let's wrap this up, Eric, because as usual, we are into bonus time. We're good at that. I've got a couple of events coming up. I already mentioned it a little bit at the top of the show, but tomorrow on Small Business Saturdays, I've got Todd Downing joining me, and we're going to talk about hustle and how to find time to get things done in your business and still have some sort of a normal life. As solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, we, as Terry always says, have the right to work every hour of every day, and a lot of times that's what it takes. But how do you juggle that? How do you hustle while still getting through? So looking forward to having that conversation with Todd. 1 p.m. Central Time, so that's 2 p.m. for you folks over on the East Coast. You West Coast folks, just show up. Wait for me there. So let's see. That's 11, 10, something like that on the West. Anyhow. Facebook.com/AaronMontgomery.info is where you're going to check that out at. And just another reminder that I will be in November 11th, actually, hosting a digital marketing webinar called Becoming a Digital Marketing Superhero. Right now, I'm just taking people that are interested in information, want to get on the list to get early notification and be the first ones to join. It is going to be through Zoom, and so it's going to be limited. There's not going to be open up to everybody, so seats will be limited because I do want to not only have lots of good training, but then also have an opportunity for lots of good interaction and answering questions and getting specifics. So it's actually going to be a 3-part event. I don't think I've kind of talked about this yet. I mentioned the social media and email marketing, but also going to have a segment in there about websites too. So
very cool.
Just kind of getting everything started in digital marketing. We talk about email, we talk about the social media part, but we all too often use social media as our home. And then when Facebook decides they're not going to show off your stuff unless you pay them money, that's no good. So we need to have a home of our own, which is our website, that people want to go to and be a part of and check out information. So we'll talk about that too. Okay. So that's me.
Awesome.
Eric, you've got some cool stuff coming up. In fact, involved with what we just talked about. What do you have on the?
Yeah. Well, first I'll go ahead and talk about my articles really quickly. I like to give the people who I print for, do stuff for, and print a little bit of a boost because you can go see these things digitally. This month in Printware, you're going to find my Erich's Embellishments column, and it deals with design analysis. So everybody who wants to digitize in your Embroidery Geek, get out there and learn how to analyze existing designs so you can recreate them, and that you can get that in the digital edition. So you don't have to be a subscriber or get it in print. Digital edition is out there. Front page. Also, Images Magazine out of the UK. So people across the pond are not the only people who can see this. You can get this digitally here too. I've got a piece called As Easy as ABC where I discuss the methods for digitizing lettering. So it's a quick breakdown of how to put gliss together for embroidery and how to kind of conceptualize that stuff to make it easier. Once again, images-magazine.com, July edition. You'll be able to check that out. And then I'm working on an event that you might have heard about. Cautiously, I may be out there in Miami also in October. But once again, that's one of those things where we're right at the start of the Deco Summit talks right now. It's a good likelihood I'm going to be out there. I don't want to tell everybody, yep, absolutely sign up. But we don't have all the details yet. But I'm setting up where if all things go well, good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. I will be out there in Florida if I can make that happen. So that is a very likely thing to look for. Since I usually don't have events in the second half of the year or out in the east of any kind, you may be catching me out there as well to teach. Cool. So good things there. And I guess I'm going to announce briefly for Terry.
Yeah. So Terry's got a few things coming up. Yep, for sure.
He's got a couple of things coming up. Number one, you can always find everything he has under tour dates at terrycombs.com. He's actually keeping that up to date after Aaron's prompting for years. So he gets his stuff up to date, and he's got an upcoming complete screen printing business course in Chicago at Atlas Screen Supply, August 24th and 25th. And you can sign up at atlasScreenSupply.com. That's where you catch Terry.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah, definitely check that stuff out. So I had a question in here. Cindy says, will y'all be at ISS Fort Worth? And we know Cindy's from Texas because she said y'all. And actually, Eric, I haven't even still working on all this, but I'm 99.9% sure I will be there with a new project happening. I'm going to be there doing some stuff with Clay from
I heard about
training in Corel. So yes, more details coming on that soon, Cindy. So looking forward to getting out. I don't get out very much anymore. I'm normally here in this chair while Terry's traversing the country. So my turn to get out a little bit too. But yeah, good stuff. Okay, Eric. Well into bonus time. So let's close this out.
Absolutely.
Henry was fantastic. Great information. Make sure to check out all of his stuff. Ricoma USA is their website. And you want to check that out, ricoma.usa. And really great information. I'm looking forward to kind of following some more over there at their YouTube channels and everything else as well. So we're definitely going to have to get Henry back on the show. So thanks very much to Henry.
Absolutely. And I won't thank myself since Terry usually thanks me as the producer today. I won't be so self-serving as to thank myself.
You should.
But what I will say is let's go ahead and thank our sponsor once again. Thank you to Embrilliance and their family of products. And definitely go check out the new update over there. And remember, if you have been waiting for the update to come out to purchase, code 2RG at embrilliance.com/store will get you 10% off your purchase. So it's always great when they give us a code like that. It's just for our users, and it's something that they keep up even when other sales aren't going on. So use that code 2RG over at brilliance.com.
Absolutely. All right. Well, next week, Eric, we're still kind of working a little bit on it, so that there's 2 options in the works right now. I'm working with Jeff, a gentleman and I just totally spaced on his company name. I think it's One Off Apparel, but I may have that wrong. But we're working with him. He may come on next Friday to talk to us about kind of mixed media, including some screen printing and DTG stuff.
Nice.
So I think he's going to be on either the 2nd or the 9th, and then so whichever one of those dates he's not available for, Terry and I will be just discussing the 2 of us. Finally, just a normal 2 regular guys show, and it looks like we're going to be talking a little bit about business planning and kind of that working on your business stuff. So excited about both of those shows. So that's coming up. So really good stuff there.
Very cool. All right. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and put the nail in the coffin here. Let's go ahead and finish this thing off. Let you guys get back to work. I know you've all been running and working, but let's go ahead and give you back your day. Until then, I'm Erich Campbell, sitting in for world traveler Terry Combs. He's Aaron Montgomery.
And we are the 2 regular guys. Thank you for listening to 2 Regular Guys. Check out our website at 2regularguys.com. That's the number 2, regularguys.com. You can also interact with us over at our Facebook page, facebook.com/2regularguys, or send us a tweet, twitter.com/2regularguys. And we have a YouTube page. You can find all that from our website, 2regularguys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to spending some time with you again next week.